but I had no idea about the hammers and how deeply intertwined they were into the entirety of this all. I just knew about the cannibal actor weirdo, but it's not just like Succession. Succession is so milquetoast compared to the hammers. The hammers are Succession on steroids, okay? Like if I was a hammer and I was watching Succession, I'd be like, well, this is boring. Why didn't you try and bribe every major U.S. political figure in history? Why haven't you done that part yet? I do it all the time. It's amazing. All right, everyone. I have an outrageous segment for you all. Do you all remember the movie The Social Network?
Either of you can answer.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I thought you were reading the letter.
You remember the characters of the Winklevoss twins played by the same actor? This is actually just a special effect to make it look as if it's two individuals, but you probably have heard of this individual, right?
Well, sir, in the Harvard Student Handbook, which is distributed to each freshman, under the...
Okay, well, some of you are saying yes, some of you are saying no, you don't recognize this. But I'm just wondering, do you recognize the actor? It was quite a turn for Armie Hammer, who plays I guess the male love interest in a homosexual relationship, and started to make him a bit more of a darling child, because he had been in a lot of roles, a lot of flops, you know, but a lot of really big movies. In fact, if you look at his IMDb, it is filled with big projects. He's in an awesome movie, Sorry to Bother You. There was The Man from U.N.C.L.E. That one flopped a little bit, but still, he was the star of The Lone Ranger alongside what's his face, Johnny Depp, doing portrayal of an indigenous person, not being indigenous. But anyways, a golden boy of the movies and cinema. In fact, he was in a movie I think that came out this year. Death on the Nile trailer. And fair enough, it's probably because it was made prior to the news I'm about to talk to you about.
Mr. and Mrs. Simon Doyle.
You must meet Hercule Poirot.
Someone is dead. The crime is murder.
Now, despite being a massive box office draw, you probably noticed that Armie Hammer's not very present in this trailer. They're not showing a lot of clips of him. It's not featured prominently.
Murder was methodically planned. I trust you.
What do you want me to say?
Russell Brand, everyone's favorite anti-vaxxer. Russell Brand. He took a break from being an anti-vaxxer for pay on YouTube to make another movie. So there's that. So anyways, Armie Hammer, the actor that I've been featuring prominently in these three examples, he was a darling child of Hollywood, a Hollywood elite, if you will, does the trajectory where he rises to fame incredibly quickly, stars in a whole bunch of super high budget films, and then none of them really do that well, and then he makes the pivot into making a very artsy film, and that artsy film ends up, again, winning him a lot of accolades. He feels like he's on a trajectory perhaps to getting an Academy Award or something. All of this is just blowing up in all our faces, and then suddenly, you may have recalled going on the Twitters one day, and you see his name trending, and you think to yourself, why? Why is that motherfucker trending? Click on it, and yikes of the highest order. He's kind of a cannibal. Or at least he finds cannibalism erotic. Or at least he really, really wants to eat women, and tells them that in DMs. And then a handful of women start coming forward and saying that they all had similar stories involving him and extreme forms of abuse and bondage and being beaten and tied up. And yes, in certain cases, drinking of the blood as he brands them. So what the fuck? And I remember that. I do. I remember that point, and I was like, what the hell? Armie Hammer wants to eat people? He's a fucking modern-day abusive cannibal? This is wild. Wild story. Absolutely wild story. It was a big thing for a while, and then the typical thing happened where he said that he was in a consensual relationship with all these women, and that I was actually just into BDSM. I enjoy a little bit, maybe, let's say, spicier sexual interactions than the regular vanilla person, but there's nothing wrong with that if it's consensual. Well, the women in question all said that it was not consensual, and the other problem is that BDSM is based on consent. It is like, people think because BDSM can be about hurting other people or stuff like that. I mean, I'm not in the BDSM world, but we've learned multiple times on the stream. We've spoken to people who are. We've spoken to dominatrix. We brought on sex workers who are BDSM dominatrix, and they've explained in expressive terms, BDSM is first and foremost about consent and communication. That's what it's all about. You have safe words. You have communication. You are hurting each other, yes, but in a safe way in which you both are consenting towards the actions you are doing. It is not about tying people up, hurting people, branding people against their wishes, drinking their blood. That is not BDSM. That is 100% him trying to just be like, oh, this isn't as bad as you all think it is, right? This is just the casual. So that's what I thought of as Armie Hammer. That was the extent to which I just thought it was a casual Hollywood story. You know, Armie Hammer, Hollywood darling child, rose to super fame. Turns out he's also an abusive, terrible asshole. He's been investigated for rape right now. Nothing has come from it. A whole bunch of women have come out with similar stories. He's very, very scary, and that's all there was to it. Then someone told me, Lance, you gotta watch this new documentary on Discovery called House of Hammer. And I was like, oh, is it about Armie Hammer eating people? He's like, a little, but that's not nearly how far the rabbit hole goes. And I was like, wait, what? Yeah. You just trust me on this one. You gotta watch it. You gotta watch it. And so I did. Holy fuck. He is connected to and in a long lineage of one of the most powerful families in the history of America, going back all the way to, yes, direct associations with the USSR and Lenin, and connecting the dots through American history all the way down the rabbit hole to fucking Nixon and Watergate. It is that same very family. And I had no idea. No idea. And it just kept going and going. And I was like, holy shit, I can't believe this. And like, there are parts of American history that I thought I knew decently well, but I had no idea about the Hammers and how deeply intertwined they were into the entirety of this all. I just knew about the fucking cannibal actor weirdo. But it's not just like Succession. Succession is so fucking milquetoast compared to the Hammers. The Hammers are Succession on fucking steroids, okay? Like if I was a Hammer and I was watching Succession, I'd be like, well, this is boring. Why didn't you try and fucking bribe every major U.S. political figure in history? Why haven't you done that part yet? I do it all the time. It's amazing. Here's the trailer.
I am here to talk about what happened in my relationship with Armie Hammer.
My bet was going to involve showing up at your place and completely tying you up and incapacitating you, and then being able to do whatever I wanted to every single hole in your body until I was done with you.
These are messages that are being sent literally within seconds of each other.
I mean, he said, I'm 100% a cannibal. I'm freaking out.
Yeah, I see everyone shopping like, what the fuck? I agree. I was like, I had no idea how far the rabbit hole goes. But this is just the abuse part. Like, and I'll finish the trailer, but I tried to get a little history sketch of you of the legacy of these people, and it's wild. So this is Armie Hammer, right? This is his father, Michael Hammer. This is his grandfather, Julian Hammer. His great-grandfather, this is his, I don't have a picture of Julian. Julian being his grandfather. Armand being his great-great-grandfather, and then his great-grandfather, and then his great-great-grandfather is Julius Hammer. Julius Hammer is a Jewish Russian who comes to the United States and is one of the founding members of the fucking, I want to get this right, because I said Communist Party originally, but I think it's the SDL, which eventually evolved into the Communist Party. His father, Julius Hammer, was a Jewish émigré from Odessa and a doctor and a pharmacist, occupied a leading position in the Socialist Labor Party of America, the SLP. He's one of the founding members of the SLP. I kid you not. I was like, wait, what? What? How did this happen? How did this all happen? And he was this, his son would become and eventually described as Lenin's favorite capitalist, tying together capitalism in America and capitalism in the US fucking USSR. Yes, unreal. So that's Julius Hammer. His father, Armand, did not want to be a socialist. He wanted to reject his father and become a hardcore capitalist. So Armand ends up marrying a wealthy woman and then uses her wealth to form or buy and then expand the power of Oxy, the petroleum company. It becomes one of the largest petroleum companies in US history, eventually reaching heights of, I believe, close to $18 billion, and does direct work and sales with members of the Kremlin because of their close ties between the two families. Then there's Julian, who is not, there's no photo of Julian on here. Julian is the first of the kind of weirdo creep-ass fail sons, because I should add, in each one of these families, the men are horrifyingly abusive to the women, to the point of like beating them bloody. They are monsters, absolute monsters. Julian Hammer, again, yet another absolute monster, beating women, and leaves and ends up leaving his wife, or sorry, his wife ends up leaving him, something that was kind of untold of at the time, and gives birth to Michael Hammer. Now, Michael Hammer, of the two, Michael Hammer has a sister. The sister is the whistleblower of all of this, and only recently came forward to explain everything about this. But it's the sister of Michael Hammer, technically Armie Hammer's aunt, who ends up being the whistleblower and everything. It turns out Julian Hammer was a serial pedophile, and in his fucking mansion that he hosted, again, inheritance through the wazoo on this kind of stuff, in his mansion, she would go visit him because the parents were separated. She found there was tons of people that were about her age, 14, 15, 16-year-old girls, and they were doing outrageous sexual acts and drugs and all this kind of shit and filming it. So fucking disgusting, gruesome. Every single man in the timeline of this fucked up family has done horrifying fucked up shit. It just gets worse and worse and worse. And we're not even at the worst part, because she then says that she was also sexually abused and molested by Julian Hammer. Like, absolutely disgusting. Absolutely outrageous. And so unfortunately it has, you know, ruined her life and every aspect about it. So that's the sister of Michael Hammer, Armie's father. Michael Hammer, and here's where things get even more wild. Somehow, again, this fucking blew my mind in American US history. Michael Hammer does not get, because the Armand is still alive during this timeline, doesn't get the inheritance. Armand ends up giving it to a whole bunch of different people. He doesn't get the $40 billion inheritance that the whole family had accrued by that point. He gets like a small trust of like $40 million. He's so pissed off at his dad that he's like, fuck you, dad, then gives private investigators and the US government all the dirt on Armand Hammer, this old man right here, pictured on the right side. That's how we learn about all the fucked up shit that Armand Hammer actually was doing. Turns out, have you ever seen All the President's Men, that movie that talks about Watergate, and when the whistleblower comes forward, Deep Throat says, by the way, follow the money. Who he's talking about when he says follow the money is Armand fucking Hammer. Armand Hammer eventually gets arrested and charged for his involvement in the Watergate scandal. Turns out Armand Hammer, his entire life, has bribed every single major US president to get his biddings. He is quoted as having said, would you ever want to become the president? And he said, why would I want a position that doesn't have that much power? Because he knew he could grease the wheels of history along US history, along the course of time, to be able to do a whole bunch of super fucked up shit with his petroleum company, as well as a ton of other companies, including Armand Hammer. Yes, that same Armand Hammer brand. They end up growing to such a size that they buy up and buy all these other companies. They do so much fucked up shit. This company has like a rap sheet that would make your head spin, the amount of fucked up stuff that they're doing. What did Julian do wrong? Well, how about he killed a guy and got away with it because his father ended up just paying a judge $50,000. Yeah, so he just got away with shooting a man. and also tons of sexual abuse, pedophilia, and sexually abusing his own daughter, in addition to all of that stuff. So like, I had no idea. I used to watch this motherfucker's movies. I used to see him, and I really liked that coming of age romantic film. I really liked him in The Social Network. And then when I heard about the cannibalism, I was like, okay, well, that's super fucked up. What a weirdo, huge weirdo creep. But I had no idea about the history, and it keeps going. By the way, after all the secrets of after Armand is tried and prosecuted for his involvement in Watergate and funding the Watergate scandal, he's tarnished, and so he wants to rehabilitate his image. He loves hanging around with rich, famous celebrities. You name it, he would throw parties, and it would be a who's who of Hollywood and elites and stuff. So he decides to get in on the royals. He decides to befriend Prince, now King of the Monarchy, Charles III. So Armie Hammer starts funding all of Prince Charles' weird little shit. Armie Hammer starts funding all of his charitable organizations and starts pouring money into it, to the point that they become good old besties. And unfortunately, and this is the stuff that hasn't been proven, may or may not have known and or been involved with some of the weirder, most fucked up shit that Charles has done, including some of Charles' weird new age gurus. Like, Charles is really big into homeopathy and coffee enemas and thinking that you can cure things with dilution, which is just the most ridiculous thing. Like, the less you have of something inside a water tincture, the more potent that tincture will become. Yeah, King Charles is into full-on woo. And also, the same mystical people who are teaching the king how to talk to plants and stuff end up sexually molesting children, because again, there is this just endless fucking line of shit that is going down this family. But I had no idea. I mean, the rabbit hole it kept on going and going and going. It was like it was never ending.
You just don't wake up and become this dark controller, abuser.
Good thing I caught it. It's about to show a woman in very scantily clad
You believe about making deals with the devil. The Hammers are...
That's Casey Hammer. That's the sister of Armie Hammer's dad. And that's the one who's the whistleblower on the rest of the crumbs of this family to come out and be like, everything that basically wasn't released already, she's the one who's releasing it.
Top of the totem pole. I've let the Hammers control me my whole life. It's time to stop. I refuse to be silenced. My name is Casey Hammer, and I'm about to reveal the dark, twisted secrets of the Hammer family.
So unfortunately, it's all a matter of historical record. I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything. It's a documentary about the history of America. But I was absolutely blown away by the amount of things that this family has been doing behind the scenes. Julius Hammer, well, coverage of the Hammers tends to start with Armie's great-grandfather Armand Hammer. Julius Hammer also played a role in the family's history. Armie's great-great-grandfather Julius was a doctor, a Russian immigrant, and leading Communist Party of the United States member, according to a Vanity Fair expose, recited Edward J. Epstein's biography of Armand. In 1919, he reportedly was charged with manslaughter after the death of a woman he performed an abortion on, forcing his son Armand to take up the family drug business during his incarceration. Armand Hammer, Armie's great-grandfather Armand, invested in Occidental Petroleum, reimagining himself as a self-made industrialist. He was socially connected to world leaders, being photographed with the Kennedys, the British royal family on several occasions. He was also described by Vanity Fair as Senator Al Gore's close friend. He attended several presidential inaugurations, including Franklin D. Roosevelt, Ronald Reagan, and George H.W. Bush. I think he was the most satanic man of the second half of the 20th century, Neil Linden, a longtime journalist and author of Armand's autobiography Hammer, said, in terms of corrupting the political process, in terms of controlling people, in terms of making them dance his tune, there is no comparison. Armie Hammer was the embodiment of sin because he was the embodiment of a ruthless ego. Epstein's biography, which was published after Armand's 1990 death, also accused the businessman of wide-ranging grifts, including laundering money. Casey opened up to bustle about Armand's all-encompassing grasp on his family and the world around him. It's pretty scary. My family and my grandfather's issue just in general. He wanted the Nobel Peace Prize, so that's what he was chasing. So everywhere there's a museum with Hammer on it. There's the mausoleum. I used to make jokes that if my grandfather could, he'd rename me. He just wanted everything to be his legacy. Stitchins, thanks for giving the sub to McX444. I appreciate it. Julian, Armie's grandfather Julian, could never get enough of his attention unless he resorted to really, really bad behavior. His memoir claims that behavior included allegedly abusing his family and allegedly killing a man in 1955 over a gambling debt and supposed advances on his wife, and then they paid off a lawyer $50,000 to get away with the murder. Michael, Julian's son Michael, is Armie's father, the oldest of Armand's descendants, still alive today. As Armie once recalled to the Hollywood Reporter, Michael had moved the family to the fucking paradise of the Cayman Islands for some time, a period of 10 years, according to Vanity Fair. It's the same Caribbean territory where Armie was reportedly spotted working as a timeshare salesman in 2022. So that's what he's doing now. He's a timeshare salesman. Well before reports of Armie's alleged sexual abuse circulated in 2021, Michael was rumored to have his own proclivities, including using the sex throne, as discussed in the House of Harmon documentary. An attorney described it as an unsolicited gag gift sent by friends and called the magazine's questions about it absurd. It had like actual hooks at the bottom of it and like what is it, degradation chambers and stuff. Michael and his wife Drew did not respond to interviews requests, and then there's Armie, obviously, which you already know about all the fucked up shit that he's doing. But yeah, like, oh man, wild. Like, you think you know about U.S. history, and then you find out about the super fucking wealthy family that was behind one of the most evil companies. Occidental Petroleum Corporation is an American company engaged in hydrocarbon exploration in the United States as well as the Middle East, and petrochemicals. Where did we get to the controversies? So they lobbied to do business in Libya. The environmental record is abysmal, obviously. Cleanup in the Copper Basin, the love control, here it is. On December 13th, 1998, 17 civilians, including 7 children, were killed when the Colombian Air Force dropped a cluster bomb on the hamlet of Santo Domingo, Colombia, after AirScan, Occidental security contractor, misidentified it as a hostile guerrilla target. Groups such as FARC, the National Liberation Army, that were active in the area. 3 employees of AirScan were flying seeing the Skymaster plane, from which they provided the Colombian military with the coordinates to drop the bombs. The operation had been planned by the CAF and AirScan Occidental's complex in Caño Limón, and in April 2003, Luis Alberto Galvis Mujica, a witness and survivor of the accident, sued Occidental. The courts ruled that Occidental was not liable for the incident. Just a list of like other fucking things that they did, but just like, yeah, it's unreal. Like the list just went on, and I had no idea that it actually connected the USSR and America, the capitalism behind the scenes. Like this was Lenin's favorite capitalist. I've been instrumental in trying to bring peace between the East and the West. I've been thanked by the presidents that have done in bringing this about, Hammer used to say. At the same time, it's still disputed if he was a Soviet agent. Edward J. Epstein, author of Dossier, The Secret History of Arm & Hammer, claims Hammer surely was a spy who laundered money from Moscow and financed communist espionage operations. My point in all of this, by the way, is that the dangerous minorities that seem to pose a danger to children that we should all worry about are rich people. It's not the LGBTQ+, all right? It's not gay people, trans people, blah, blah, blah. It seems to be billionaires, millionaires, all these people who just think that they're above the law, interconnecting the worlds, all this kind of stuff, running this show behind the scenes, doing all this fucked up shit. Holy hell. Holy hell. Does it ever go deep with these motherfuckers, the Hammers? And it got all the way to a famous superstar celebrity, which as of 2022 had a mainstream film come out in theaters. Probably going to be the last one because he's now selling timeshares, and you could tell that, you know, Disney already didn't really want to associate with him. His name wasn't prominent. He wasn't really in the trailer. His name's not really prominently displayed. It's kind of like, oh, well, this movie's finished. What do we do? Do we do the Kevin Spacey thing? Should we Kevin Spacey him? It's like, yeah, we can't really Kevin Spacey him. There's like, it's more than just like 2 people. Like, there's a lot of love interest. There's maybe a sex scene. I don't know, but we can't do that. Let's just, we'll release it and quietly, hopefully, just it's not going to do too bad. Like, let's just hope it works out that way. I guess. I don't know. I'm quite confused. Yeah. They fired him into Deep Spacey. Kevin Spacey keeps trying to make a comeback. Well, I mean, he'll probably try to make a comeback too at a certain point. I mean, it's a matter of time. They always do, you see?
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arnie, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Marianne McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Towle, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojack, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Inkosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.